City deadline for the franchise tag has come and gone. We did get a few players that were tagged, some a little bit surprising, some were not, as well as two notable ones that were not tagged, or teams that announced they were not going to tag them, which, again, in that instance, not surprising that there were reports leading up to that they weren't. So we'll get into a little bit of a discussion with those guys as well. Before we can get to that, this is the non-exclusive rights that was posted on here. You'd look at the quarterbacks at 43.8, running backs at 14.2, wide receivers at 27.2, tight ends a little over $15 million, offensive linemen 25.7, defensive ends 24.4, D tackles 27.1, linebackers 26.8, corners 21.1, safeties 20.1, and if you care about kickers and punters, 6.6 million for that one. And no surprise there, kickers and punters, no one was tagged on that side of things for that position. But that's just the non-exclusive franchise tag there for that. Now, the players that were tagged, this was the last one, the two later ones right before the deadline here was Breece Hall and Daniel Jones. Breece Hall got 14.2. Daniel Jones got a little bit less for the transition tag at 37.8. And I am surprised a little bit. I shouldn't be too much because they definitely need someone at quarterback. I don't know what direction they're going to with Daniel Jones being up for a contract. You look at Anthony Richardson. Are they going to move off of him? What can they get for him? Is there still high potential for teams to kind of, the high physical traits that he has, and just him still being a young quarterback? Will someone throw a decent amount of capital wherever they're asking for him to do so? I don't know. I mean, is this point here where are they fully sold? They're fully done with Anthony Richardson? Are they cannot see themselves having him under center ever again for this franchise? I don't know. And it's a very blurry gray area for this organization with this, especially with Daniel Jones, going back to him real quick with the injury. And now trying to pay him. There was reports that he was looking for $40 million a year on a contract, which is not insane. I mean, it is a lot for when you hear Daniel Jones' name and also $40 million in the same sentence. But unfortunately, if we take a quick look for the trackers for quarterbacks for this one, if I can pull it up here real quick here, see contracts, and you look on a year average for that position there, it's not crazy to say that. I mean, if you put him at $40 million right here, that is middle of the pack, tier, second half of the quarterbacks they're getting paid here. You look at the area around him. Matthew Stafford is $42 million per year. You look at Patrick Mahomes, as right now, it is $45 million a year. Kirk Cousins is $45 million a year before when he got his contract with Atlanta, no longer with them, will be released day one of the new league year, I should put it as. So you look at that, you look at the quarterbacks around them too. It sounds maybe outrageous for Daniel Jones to say that, but how do you feel about it? It is the going rate for quarterbacks, and for a starting caliber quarterback, how do you feel about his, the level of him, the tier of being average, above average, a decent quarterback? It is around what everyone else is making in that one. You look at Sam Darnold here that won the Super Bowl, $33.5 million that he signed for. So it's not outrageous for Daniel Jones saying that, especially when you kind of jump up here and you look at everyone else, what they're making on the above $40 million. Yes, half of them are a little bit outrageous to say the least for that one. Kyler Murray is $146.1 million. You go a little bit higher for this one too with Tua, another bad contract for that one. So $40 million isn't outrageous. I think we just kind of get stuck. We're used to just hearing the number and just how outrageous it sounds for a quarterback like this, especially when you go back to his tenure with the Giants, when getting that before Lamar Jackson got his big contract. Yes, it did upset a lot of people at that point when he did get that extension here. And again, I feel like this is a point now where the Colts felt desperate. They had to do something. They couldn't get a deal done. They were, the backs were against the wall at the deadline for the franchise tag, and they placed it on there. Got $37.8 million a year, or for this year, I should say, alone. Not that far off from at least $40 million when he was asking for, fully guaranteed for Daniel Jones in this one. And it's a prove a year. It is, no question about that. They want to see him coming back from injury. They want to see how he does in year two. Was this first year with the Colts a fluke? Certainly it was a insane season, to say the least, for the Colts after how great they started the year and the fact that they just fell off the second half of the season. Yes, Daniel Jones was a little bit part of that losing streak there before he got hurt with the season-ending injury, but still, it hurt him massively to have him out for however how many games it was at the end of the season, and then flame out the way they did and miss the postseason. Which again, I think at one point they were 8-2 during the season, and it's just the fact it blows my mind that they were 8-2. I think if I have it correctly, 8-2, and they lose all their games. Yeah, they lose 7 straight because they go 8-9 at the end of the season. So yes, it blows my mind that it got to that point. But it's another proof year for Daniel Jones, getting back, recovering from that injury, and seeing what he can do with this team. Now he might be without Alec Pierce, which I thought that was going to be a spot the Colts were going to go into that direction. Now, if you look at when I looked at Spock Track for the projected contract for Alec Pierce, it is. You can look at that and easily go, it is a overpay to use the franchise tag as opposed to using the projective stats, the numbers I should say. What Spotrac is putting at Alec Pierce, you're overpaying $7 million for him. When I get to the Colts real quick here, let's see where we get to the Colts here, and I go to the free agent side of things. You look at what they have it projected for Pierce. If I can get to him. Where is he? Yeah, $20.2 million is what they have him at right here, or 4 years, $80 million. It's tough to gauge of what type of player he is. I do see some people saying this is an overpay, that he's overrated, and to a point, I do agree with that. I think he is. I just don't see him being a number one wide receiver for somebody. Yes, if he goes to a situation where there's better quarterback play, yes, of course he's going to be elevated. The stats are going to be better. I just don't see him ever mulling into a wide receiver 1. I think he's a great wide receiver 2, but I worry people are going to put too much pressure on him, too much faith and stock on him going to a different situation when they're expecting more of him, of course, getting a much bigger payday. And he doesn't live up to that. I think certainly he is a fringe 1,000-yard receiver, like he showed you this season with the Colts. But I don't expect anything else there. Yes, he does have a kind of that deep threat there. Certainly his average yards per reception is great. But again, when you look at this and you are maybe a little bit wary of giving the contract of $20 million, it doesn't make sense to overpay for the franchise tag, fully guaranteed at $27 million for a wide receiver there. But I thought that was maybe a direction that they were going to go to, because I didn't know how it was going to play out with Daniel Jones in that situation. I didn't know what I mean, it's the Colts. Let's say at least it's the Colts. We know how they are as an organization. How their RAN decision making the last few years is certainly questionable, to say the least there. So again, it was a lot of, for me at least, a lot of confusion of what direction they're going towards. If they're going to get a long-term extension done with Daniel Jones before getting to this point, we're going to get a long-term extension done with Alec Pierce before this point. We're going to use the franchise tag on Alec Pierce. I didn't know what direction they were going to, but it makes sense that they didn't put the franchise tag again on Alec Pierce because of just overpaying from at that point here, when you can probably get him cheaper for the projected contract that Spotrac has him as. Not to say that he can't get more than $20.2 million, but just what they have him as a value right now. So again, it's a solid move here. Give Daniel Jones one more opportunity to prove himself, and if he plays well like he did in the first half of this past season, then you could talk about having that future contract extension at this point here. But even with this franchise tag, touching back on Anthony Richardson, do we expect him to be gone relatively soon? I mean, if they're giving him one more opportunity, it's hard for me to believe they're going to have him sit the bench another year with Daniel Jones being the starter, however it plays out, and then either halfway through the season next year, if it blows up in their face and he plays horrible, or it goes well, and then maybe if they can't get a deal done, maybe they franchise tag him again after that. How much more do you keep Anthony Richardson at this point here when they seem certainly committed to Daniel Jones, even if it's just a franchise tag and couldn't get a deal done? Do we expect Anthony Richardson to get moved relatively soon? Again, there is high potential still in terms of his physical attributes, his ability, strong arm, still young at his age, and in the core at the NFL level as well. So does someone want to get a flyer on that? We're high potential, probably not that much, for trade requests and giving up for assets. Again, we'll see how it plays out too. Maybe we have to wait a little bit closer to the NFL draft at this point, or maybe even after the NFL draft, where if teams miss out on, Sonny Mendoza is going to be the first overall pick at that point there with the Raiders. Obviously, it's going to be the chess match of where does Ty Simpson go? Where's the other quarterbacks in the draft class go? And if a team fails to get their quarterback, or if everyone's eyes are sought on Ty Simpson being the quarterback too, maybe probably being picked in the first round as well with Mendoza, that if you miss out on that, hey, maybe we have this backup option with Anthony Richardson. And again, it's going to cost me, certainly less to get him as opposed to Ty Simpson, where maybe you have to trade up a little bit if you're in a team that's late in the first round. Again, who knows? We know how teams are. They're quarterback needy, and especially how high quarterbacks are drafted, whether you think they're worthy of that or not. They do fly off the draft relatively fast at this point, especially with this draft class that is considered weak outside Mendoza. Certainly is a possibility with there too. So look at for Anthony Richardson after the draft to get moved. But I do believe with this franchise tag placement that Anthony Richardson is 100% done, and I think the Colts have signaled that many times for that there. But again, solid move by the Colts to give this tag to Daniel Jones. Moving up to Breece Hall at this point here again, same day as Daniel Jones, $14.2 million fully guaranteed for the running back. And this is more just a desperate attempt. There's no question that Breece Hall would have walked away. He wanted to get traded at the deadline after seeing kind of the mass exodus with Sauce Gardner, with Quinton Williams. You felt at that point that maybe Breece Hall was going to get traded. I've seen some reports that the Chiefs were trying to go after him, and no doubt I'm sure they would probably go after him if he was a free agent. But the Jets are desperate at this point here. They need offensive talent because there's really nothing outside Garrett Wilson. Really nothing at all there. Maybe some promising pieces here and there. The tight end that they drafted last year too out of LSU. But he is certainly one of the better running backs. I know the stats maybe they'll jump out at you with just how he's been there with the Jets. Also injury has played an aspect there as well. Certainly there's no question if he was on a different team, certainly a better team, hard not to be on a better team than the Jets, he would flourish. He would have much better stats. He would certainly show the league that he is up there as one of the better running backs in the league here. But unfortunately, he is stuck with the Jets for at least another year. We'll see how it plays out with the that game as well. I do think that he will, of course, sign the tag and play for the Jets in 2026 here. And who knows at this point here who's going to be the quarterback going forward? We don't know. I mean, it's pretty safe to say that Justin Fields is not going to be back, nor is any other quarterback on that roster going to be back on that on the team next year for 2026. So you need all the help you can get for said quarterback coming in, whether it's a free agent, if it's Kyler Murray, throw a name out there, if it's the draft and they decide to go get Ty Simpson or another quarterback later in the draft process. But certainly Breece Hall is certainly effective. Certainly one of the better all-around running backs in the league with his running ability, of course, and of course catching the ball out of the backfield or running past the line of scrimmage and making plays there. So he is certainly effective. It was a great selection when they took him in the second round when they did, but it just seems like Breece Hall and the way that the direction of this organization is going with Aaron Glenn, that yes, he wants to get off the ship. He wants to go somewhere else. I don't blame him for his frustration. So I think this will be a little bit ugly of a process to get forward. I'm sure he'll hold out a little bit. This is just again my projection. Not be, I could be completely wrong. Could sign it instantly. Have no fuss whatsoever about it. But I do expect him to play with the Jets in 2026, of course, and move forward with that. We'll see how it plays out with that. I don't expect them, projecting forward. I don't expect them to place a franchise tag on him again at this point here. I don't know how much more it's going to jump up for the running backs next year for the franchise tag, but I mean, I do some people kind of see, well, it's a decent amount of money for Breece Hall, $14.2 million, or just any running back in general at this point here. Definitely some, going towards the top dollar of the running backs there, no question about that. So it's hard for me to believe that they would, put the tag on him once again, seeing how, if it's a few $1 million more, if it's 15, 16, 17 million, however, how much farther it jumps up at that point here, it is going to probably get a little ridiculous for the Jets here, even if they are big fans of Breece Hall, want to keep him, that it's going to be boom or bust this year to get a deal done, and he'll probably be going elsewhere after 2026 here. So again, it's not too surprising because they were just so reluctant to get rid of him in the trade deadline and probably desperate at this point here to keep talent, because I think there would be a ton of controversy from the Jets fan base if Breece Hall was going to walk away after in the free agency, and they're kind of sit there like, oh well, now we have to get receivers, now we have to get another running back on top of anything else that we need, especially on the defensive line, D tackle, corner, and so forth, linebacker. I mean, just you name the list. There is a lot of holes that need to be fixed on this lineup here, and certainly you didn't need that with more damage to that with Breece Hall leaving. So again, similar to what I said, the Colts here, more desperate attempt trying to keep Breece Hall for one more season and trying to fill repair some of the spots on this roster, and then next year you probably be more, it'd be not as hard to let him go at this point here because you have more spots fixed in 2025. in 2026, and then certainly in a better position to draft a running back or maybe sign one free agency with other positions in better spots at that point there. So again, those are the two on the deadline on March 3rd. Of course, the ones we've seen for a few days ago, George Pickens, not surprising. They are no question about that. They want to keep him around. He had a phenomenal year this year in Dallas, and at times when CeeDee Lamb was hurt, he balled out, career year all across the board in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. He was a slam dunk. I mean, give Jerry Jones credit as much as he gets bashed, and rightfully so, for a lot of dumb things he does and says. This was a phenomenal trade for him going back to last offseason. I love this. This was a great move by their part here, and it just smashed the ceiling of expectations of what he was able to do there. And no doubt, no question about that, if he hit the open market, people will be throwing a lot of money at him. Now, there is some concern, of course, with just the attitude problems and so forth, the antics he has on the sidelines, maybe at times in games. So that is certainly a rebuttal to George Pickens, and maybe teams being a little bit reluctant to give a big contract. But no question about that, when you look at the talent and what he did on the field there, it was phenomenal. And now you see just with a better quarterback, what he put up there. I mean, you could kind of nitpick what he did in Pittsburgh there. I mean, the numbers weren't as great as we thought it was going to be with him being highly touted coming out of Georgia, but he just showed you that he can be one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. He can. I don't want to put him up there as you go back to 2026. Yes, you can put him up there as one of the top wide receivers in the league in terms of totality for his career. I don't want to put him there yet. I think I want to see more seasons of him replicating this before I get to that point here, but certainly he is showing you that he has a capability of being that number one wide receiver. He has a capability of being a difference maker. Yes, I got into a point kind of pushing back what I just said. He did put up those numbers alongside CeeDee Lamb. Yes, it does help when you have a all-pro wide receiver alongside you. And certainly you can't focus all your attention on Pickens, which kind of going back to Pittsburgh, where he was really the main guy and didn't really put up those numbers. Did have 1,000 yards at one point with the Steelers there, but when you look at all the focus was put on him because there's no outside threat besides Pickens. You see the big difference between Pittsburgh and Dallas with a all-pro receiver alongside him. So again, I do think he can still put up great numbers for a team there, no question about that. And again, I think teams were going to throw a ton of money at him and go after him, even with the controversy, with kind of maybe the antics and what he does in the sidelines at some point, diva, if you want to call him as, to put it nicely. But not surprised that the Cowboys did put the tag on here as well. They have not ruled out as well that they could trade him as well, along with the franchise tag as well being not exclusive too. I've heard to say that as well for the Jets here, not exclusive as well, but I don't expect them to trade them as well. He's going to be staying, like I said, for the Jets in 2026. But going back to the Cowboys here, maybe they feel at this point here, yeah, it's a smart move. You put a franchise tag on them, you get certainly that guaranteed deal for one season. And it is, maybe a team looks at it as a rental per se, that maybe if they can't get a deal done, hey, if we can maximize potential for one season for the upcoming year with our, with the supporting cast we have, with the roster we have, it can be, no question about that, it'll pay for itself if you can get to the, go all the way in win the Super Bowl or go far of your expectations of where you want to do. So it is a smart move by the Cowboys there, put them on the franchise tag, get a decent amount of draft capital if they want to do that back, or whatever the assets they get in return for Pickens, and then you free up the money there, and having to worry about paying Pickens top dollar for a long-term extension alongside what CeeDee Lamb is making, alongside what Dak Prescott is making on the roster. It does free up a lot of cap space there, and then you can use that money elsewhere. So smart move by Dallas Cowboys on their part there to put the franchise tag on there. Worst case scenario, they don't trade them, they keep it for another year, and then they try and play it out again to give him a long-term deal. And after that, maybe they let him walk. So it's a win-win situation all around for the Dallas Cowboys here. No issue what they did there. Smart move by them. And you look at the Atlanta Falcons, put the franchise tag on Kyle Pitts on February 24th, February 27th for the George Pickens here. This is not surprising too. Just a little over $15 million, like I talked about in the first listings when I showed you that for the franchise tag values there. Not surprising at all. I think they want to give him another year here. He has been a disappointment, if you want to call it that, for the stats. I mean, he certainly hasn't lived up to expectations per se with where he was drafted all those years ago. If I kind of pull up his stats right here real quick, if I can spell, that'd be nice. And I look at, if I could spell, be fantastic. I keep hitting the damn wrong keys here. When I look at his stats, outside of his first year, which was great. I mean, first off, before I even say that, it is kind of mind-boggling that he has over 1,000 yards, 6 to 8 receptions, and he has 1 touchdown the whole season in 17 games. It kind of blows my mind for that part. But after that rookie season where he did make the Pro Bowl, of course, that the next 3 years are very lackluster. I mean, you go back to 2022. Yes, he did miss 7 games of the season, but only 28 receptions, 356, 2 touchdowns. Then he plays full seasons the next 2 years in 23 and 24, 667 and 3 touchdowns, 602, 4 touchdowns. Yes, better than his sophomore season, but again, where he was drafted as highly as he was with the 4th overall pick in 2021. And you look at what he did his rookie season, yeah, there was a lot left to be desired, and it was always this typical, thing you would hear in fantasy. This is the year. This is his breakout year. The next year will come. This is his year. This is the breakout year. And I feel like we've been saying that forever now for this one. But he did have a great bounce back season, the best since his rookie season. 88 receptions, 928, 5 touchdowns. A career year at the touchdown section there as well, as long as receptions had a career high in receptions as well, and as long and 2 with targets. So you look at that, and certainly had a bounce back season. And again, completely understand why they put the franchise tag on there. He did have a great season, I should say, a very good season to say the least here for Pitts. But you want to see him replicate that again, because there is certainly, again, when you look at the stats here, it is very concerning that there is a 3-year gap between his sophomore season and his 5th-year option that he has success, and in the middle there, it is horrible, to say the least. Again, looking at where he was drafted, the expectations, the caliber player that people were, certainly make him out to be coming out of Florida. Yeah, so you combine all that, it is very disappointing of what he did there. Now, the good thing on him is the injury aspect. Outside of his sophomore year, he has played a full season 4 out of 5 years. Fantastic. In terms of availability, amazing. We can't question that. But for another year for the franchise, for another year on the franchise tag, it makes sense. You want to see him do it one more time. If he can replicate what he did last year, 928, 5 touchdowns, if he get around the 900 mark, you hope a little bit more touchdowns in that category, he will get a long-term extension. But again, when you look on here for the numbers, just looking at it on screen right here, it is worrisome to look at this and go, there's a huge gap between his you pick out his 2 top seasons of his career, and there's this huge gap in between that is very disappointing. So you want to see him. On top of that, too, it might hurt him because you look at the quarterback position, who are they going to get? We don't know the status yet about Michael Penix, with him when he's going to come back. I doubt he's going to be healthy week 1. I'm sure it's going to take a little bit for him to come back. I don't know the status of him yet. Maybe he could. I doubt it. So you have that. Who's going to come in and return? Could that be Kyler Murray? Could it be somebody else? Who's going to be the quarterback there at that position in 2026? I do feel a little more comfortable at the head coach position with Stefanski. I'd love that hire for the Falcons, especially with the pieces they have around whatever set quarterback it is with, again, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London. There is a high potential for that to be one of the better offenses in the league, but I got to see what the quarterback position here for the Falcons is going forward in the offseason. So I'm not concerned with the scheme and how he's going to be, chalked up with Stefanski. It's just more about who's going to be the quarterback there. So we'll see with that too. Again, have no issue with the Falcons franchise tagging him, give him another opportunity, because if he could somewhat replicate what he did in 2025, give you around 900 yards, Darius even hit 1,000, no question about that. He's going to get a long-term extension. If not, someone will probably throw a decent amount of money at him in free agency if they want to get to that point there. I doubt they would franchise tag him again for a second year. So again, I have no issue with this whatsoever. And I would say, frankly, I have no problem with any of these per se. Again, there might be some controversy with what, going back to what I said just briefly with Breece Hall. Might be a little bit ugly because I don't know how bad he wants to get out of the New York. But in terms of the team standpoint, it makes sense. For the Colts, yes, there's a lot of dysfunction with, Daniel Jones, what's going to happen with him for long term, what's going to happen with Anthony Richardson. It makes sense why they franchise tag Daniel Jones. It makes sense with George Pickens. It makes sense with Kyle Pitts. There's no team really out there out of this list and go, why would they do this? Why would you franchise tag this guy? I really don't feel like that. Maybe for some people, they feel that way. Again, for Breece Hall, because of the money he's making. Maybe for Daniel Jones, they feel that way, and so forth. But I have no issue with that at all. I think every team that put the franchise, used the franchise tag, No issue with that whatsoever. Now, the two that were not tagged, that again were reported multiple times before, leading up to the date, was Trey Hendrickson and Kenneth Walker. Not surprised here at all. Here, Trey Hendrickson wants out of Cincinnati. I don't think they want a franchise tag. Certainly he didn't want that. Let me rephrase that real quick. Obviously, he didn't want the franchise tag. I don't think the Bengals wanted to play, try and deal with this once again for up in the air of, just dealing with this, not also dealing with his antics, but just dealing with the problem, trying to get a long-term extension done, being a negative spotlight on the team, and kind of just more draining energy out of the situation than it already is, and trying to focus and trying to just move on and focus on something else. There, it sucks losing a guy like that. Certainly, you look at. Outside, this was a huge disappointing season for him, but as well as everyone else on the team on the defensive side here, not bashing him too much for this past season. Did have some injury, of course, but you look at the prior years, back-to-back 17.5 sacks, and was the sack leader of 2024. Yes, he'd be absolutely phenomenal. You want to keep a guy like that, but again, I think at this point here, you just got to realize that a deal's not going to get done. It's not going to be possible. It's not going to happen. So I think, it's just the Bengals just let him walk away. And you know what? We tried. We're not going to fight this any longer. We need to focus on something else. And you can use that money that you're going to pay Trey Hendrickson and put that in the defense somewhere else, or the offensive line, however you want to phrase that, and kind of spread out the money better. Now we'll see. I don't know if I feel too confident, because they did draft Shamar Stewart last year, which I did not like at all. And surprise, surprise, it showed you why he did absolutely nothing his rookie season to be paired alongside with Trey Hendrickson. So I don't want to say I feel confident saying, yes, they're going to be smart with the money and decision-making moving forward with that for the defense and other aspects on the team. But for this one, I feel like just with, unfortunately, what they've done, if you want to view it that way, unfortunately, what they've done with the contracts with Joe Burrow, with T. Higgins, with Jamar Chase, that there's just too much money, too many big contracts built into those three guys right there, that it just seems like it'd be so difficult to give a big contract to Trey Hendrickson and what he's asking for to just to try and build the rest of the team. Unfortunately, somebody has to get cut there. I thought T. Higgins was going to be that guy they were going to let go. Of course, Joe Burrow wanted them, so they gave him big contract extensions for those two. I just don't think there's enough money for Trey Hendrickson at this point. If T. Higgins was gone, I could certainly see them making the case of giving Trey Hendrickson a big contract for whatever how many years he wants, and then trying to figure out everything else here. But I think 4 big contracts like that, I just don't think that was going to happen. So walking away with that one, I'm sure Hendrickson will get great money in free agency, no question about that. There'll be quite a few teams going after him. I kind of made a list here off the bat here, more looking at some of them being, of course, free and for cap space. The other ones were a couple of them were playoff teams, I should say. One didn't make the playoffs this year, but in the last few years have been a playoff team here. So going on the list here real quick, I have the destinations: Chargers, Patriots, Lions, Panthers, Ravens. For this one, certainly you look at those teams that are looking for that pass rushing ability, or trying to pair Hendrickson alongside someone else. With that one, sort of the Lions here for Ian Hutchinson, having a great running mate with him as well. That would be a fantastic duo to see, and that would, of course, they would wreak havoc all across the league for that one. Chargers, you need that with Joey Bosa being gone, along with other players as well. You look at Khalil Mack, up there in age. I don't know if they're going to bring him back at this point. Is it even worth bringing him back at this point here? Who knows? But they desperately need that pass rush ability as well. The Patriots, it's not an issue. They did well this year. Just we look at the pressure that they put on teams, but certainly it would be great to have that. And you look at other aspects, like, yes, of course, the offensive line that was widely shown in the Super Bowl. No doubt about that. That was, they were exposed at that point there, especially that left side of the offensive line. And they did well on defense. I think they did well. It just that the offense did absolutely nothing. The defense did all they could at that point. But I think adding that pass rushing help would be immense. And they have the draft capital. If I kind of just go back to if I can show you guys the team cap they have here, they are where they at on the top of the list. Yeah, they're 11th in the league, $35 million. They still have a good amount of cap space to make a move like that, along with maybe a couple other things, but that would be big for them if you want to try and repeat and get back to the Super Bowl. And you feel like, hey, even this year too, there's still a lot of questions about the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and so forth. You go on the list of the Chargers, the Bengals. I mean, you look at that and feel like, hey, we have another opportunity to seize the moment and get back to the Super Bowl once again. If we can add a guy like Trey Hendrickson on the roster, and on top of what we've done already defensively, what Mike Vrabel did, yes, that could be lethal. And there's gonna be certainly a lot of talk, a lot of talk about them. A target on their back about they got a weak schedule. What are they gonna do with now this new, the first place schedule in the division? What are they gonna do against better opponents? There is a lot of chatter about that they are frauds. It was an easy schedule, and to a point, yes, it was an easy schedule. Yes, things weren't as difficult as other paths for other teams, but I still think they are a great team. No doubt about that. I mean, I don't think they're just it's solely just luck that they got there. You could say just solely luck because of Bo Nix getting hurt before that game. I would say after the divisional game leading up to the AFC Championship matchup, you could say it for that. But in terms of the aspect, I mean, they earned it. You can question the teams they played. You can't. I mean, the Patriots don't have say in who they play. How do you feel about that? So yes, there is going to be a target on their back. There is going to be a lot of talking points about can they step up? Were they frauds? Are they going to prove? Are they going to prove the doubters wrong? I think adding no doubt about that. Adding Trey Hendrickson to that roster to silence those voices is immense for that. And again, what he can do with a Mike Vrabel defense, that would be interesting to see with that too. Again, you have Lions, Patriots, Chargers. Like I talk about Panthers. I just threw it on there because of they need pass rushing help. What do you want to go there? I mean, they don't have a lot of cap space, $7.6 million, but it's only a team that is in need for that pass rushing help on that side, at the edge rusher there as well. So I doubt it. I just threw it on there as a spot. Ravens, another one to a divisional rival. What do you want? What do you go there? Maybe they have decent cap space, 20.3. They do need a little bit of that pass rushing help as well. To on top of that, and then getting back to, of course, Kenneth Walker. This was talked about numerous times that they were most likely not going to be using the franchise tag on him. They're not using the franchise tag on him. That they're most likely not going to re-sign him long term. And of course, the deadline came, and they did not franchise tag the Super Bowl MVP in this one. And this is a guy who's going to get pretty good money. I'm a little bit surprised that they couldn't get a deal done. I thought they were going to keep him. I understand the idea of that, where you have Charbonnet, who's still on a fantastic deal. He has the final year of his contract, of his rookie deal. I think he's making a little over $2 million. You're probably going to draft a running back in the draft, in whatever round it may be, and then you're probably going to start the process again next year, where you're most likely going to let Charbonnet walk unless he takes a team-friendly deal, and then you're going to draft someone else and have that duo there too. But Kenneth Walker has been good. I would view him as well, again, as one of the better running backs in the league. You look at the stats here; it's not eye-popping. He does have a couple of seasons where he's just a little bit over 1,000 yards here, but he's great. I think if he goes somewhere else, he will excel. I think the numbers will certainly be much better than what it was in Seattle. I mean, it's a guy who was in a, similar to the Lions, with a duo there with Gibbs and Montgomery. You have that with Walker and Charbonnet. It worked well, no doubt about that. So he doesn't have that much mileage on him. For if you care about that, still relatively young, still in his prime, he will get a fair amount of money in free agency. Three teams that kind of threw out there for destinations is the Broncos. They need that running back help desperately. The Commanders, they need that help as well as the Steelers. I think those are three teams that they showed this year that they really need that help for the quarterbacks there. More so for the Broncos. If you feel like you were that close to getting the Super Bowl, and I will always say, if Bo Nix was healthy in the AFC Championship game, they go to the Super Bowl. And who knows if they beat the Seahawks. I'm not going to speculate, but they go on to win. But I would say no. I will firmly say that they would have won that game and at least go to the Super Bowl with Bo Nix healthy. No doubt about that. It was there for taking. Bo Nix would have found a way to make plays and find a way to put his team in position to win. I firmly believe that. I do. If you want, again, going back to what I said for the Patriots here for luck, that was the only thing you can really look at for luck. You could say it was only facing C.A. Stroud was lucky at this point here with all the turnovers he has. You look at what the Chargers, with the injuries to the offensive line, Justin Herbert, if you want to knock him for his playoff performances. But yes, that was a huge present right there for the Patriots, not facing Bo Nix. I will always say that they would have gone to the Super Bowl if they had Bo Nix there. I don't know if they would have won, but no doubt they would have gone to the Super Bowl. So you feel like you're right there. The running game needed more in the running game, and Kenneth Walker can certainly give you that. And if I go back to here for the cap space here, 13th in the league, 20.9. I do think that they will. They have the money, of course. They have the money to sign Kenneth Walker. I don't know what he's going to command. I can look it up real quick. I did see the number before for Kenneth Walker for Spotrac. I just don't recall what exactly it was for this one. If I could just pull up here real quick here. Kenneth Walker, $9 million. I mean, I think he'll get more than $9 million. I think maybe $10, $11 million in that range there. So you look again, going back to the franchise tag, you look at that and you go, well, we're a little bit reluctant to give him a long-term extension. We want to prioritize other contracts on the roster here. Again, you could, why I said the Brees Hall, you could look at this as an overpay, where it's like, well, if I want to pay him $9 million, that's what we ask you for, $10 million, why would I give a franchise tag and pay $4 million more than what I want here? So from that perspective, I don't know if I agree with this. Again, I get it from the perspective of if you want to have the running back duo, that you're just going to keep rotating those guys on cheap contracts and keep doing that, and you hope that you can hit on another Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet, who's been solid in his career thus far. But I like Walker. Again, to me, I don't know. For their sake, hopefully they're right on their part of that. I do like Walker. Again, I think the numbers don't show how good he is as a player because of just him being in a split carry backfield with those two guys. Again, you look at that, just a little over 1,000-yard rushing seasons. The other two around 900 yards. So again, nothing eye-popping, nothing amazing, not like a all-pro type of season, anything like that. Like if you look at James Cook or other top guys in the league here, again, James Cook in the same draft class as Kenneth Walker, but he is better. I think, again, going somewhere else, he will excel and have better stats than what he had. At the worst case scenario, he will replicate what he did with Seattle. I don't see it as a flop, a bust in terms of as a free agent and falling straight on his face. I don't see it at all. He is a good running back here, and I think he will excel. And one team I really pinpoint was the Broncos. I would love to see him go in the Broncos and see what he does with Sean Payton and Bo Nix and that system there because they desperately need that for that offense, along with you got a few other pieces on the wide receiver position. It's always a question mark there. That would be big if they can land Kenneth Walker in free agency there. So those are my destinations for Walker. Again, Broncos, Commanders, and Steelers. You can name, of course, other teams as well that I'm missing, but those are the top three that I had. It's only a smaller list than compared to Hendrickson. And it's going to wrap it up there for the franchise tags. Again, I'm going over for the people that were tagged: Brees Hall, Dan Jones, George Pickens, and Kyle Pitts, and the two notable names that were not tagged: Trey Hendrickson and Kenneth Walker. Let me know your thoughts down below about the tags. Do you agree with them? Do you not agree with them? Who you think should have been tagged that wasn't on this list here, as well as Kenneth Walker more? So do you believe that the Seahawks should have tagged them, try and get a long-term deal done? Let me know your thoughts down below about that, and we'll see how it plays out for when we get to, of course, free agency and what happens with these two guys, with Hendrickson and Walker, as well as if there's any issues with the guys who got the franchise tag placed on them. If there's any pushback, any battle between them and the franchise, we'll see how it plays out there.